Time's up for colleges to respond to the Trump administration's funding compact, a series of common sense reforms in exchange for billions of dollars in federal funding.
The 10-point proposal offered funding perks, but only if universities agreed to adopt a list of changes like freezing tuition for 5 years, banning race and gender in admissions, capping foreign student enrollment at 15%, releasing graduate earnings by major, enforcing merit-based hiring for faculty.
So far, how many? 7 or 8? 7, at least 7 schools have said no thank you. 2 more are still deciding. Joining us now, former White House senior policy strategist, May Mailman. May, great to see you. Why say no to this? It seems like that they've all, they're all, I use this term loosely, colluding with one another.
Yeah, and actually, these are not no's. I saw on your chart that Arizona was a no, but that's not actually the case. What Arizona said is that they have some concerns about if the compact were going to be interpreted as merit not being the key to funding research, then they wouldn't like that. But they absolutely want to work with us to try and figure out a way in which the federal and university relationship can be improved and implement a lot of these common sense reforms. So a lot of these universities are not saying no, they're saying that they have various issues, but that's exactly what we asked them for. We said that by today, we wanted to hear your feedback, not because we don't care about it, but because we do care about it. Now, these are all common sense reforms that we think are key to earning taxpayer funding. Taxpayer funding is not a given. You know, it's not a right, it's a privilege, and you should do things in the national interest in order to be entitled to that. But I think these universities, by and large, are willing to work with us on that.
Yeah, well, maybe there should be a conscious uncoupling of the federal purse from some of these universities which have massive endowments. You know, as the mother of one child in college and one child on the way, I look at some of these private schools and $90,000 a year all in to go to places like, I don't know, Miami, Columbia. That's a lot of money, especially when you're talking about schools like Harvard, which has a $56 billion endowment. Why should they be getting federal money at all when they're essentially hedge funds masquerading as universities?
That's exactly right. And the federal government has obviously a 38, I think, maybe $39 trillion deficit right now. And so in order for the next generation and generations after that to be secure, to have the type of lifestyle that we have now, the federal government has to make difficult decisions, and universities should only get funding if there's going to be a benefit for Americans on the other side of it. Now, there is research that absolutely, I think the federal government has an interest in funding, but there are research that shouldn't be. And in making those decisions, who are those universities that have the values that therefore will produce meritorious research, like non-discrimination in faculty hiring, non-discrimination in student admission? If you don't have those, it's very unlikely that you're going to have high merit research. So as part of the federal government looking at bringing our country into a brighter future, endless, mindless university funding of stupid research projects absolutely has to be part of that decision making.
Will their private equity investments seizing up, not worth nearly as much money as they think that they're worth, would that push them to the table, May? Also, any discussion about getting the federal government out of funding college tuition for somebody, anybody, everybody in this country? Because that's really the major way in which the federal taxpayer enriches these universities.
Absolutely. These universities feel like they can charge whatever tuition they want because the federal government is there to basically provide that, and no skin in the game for the universities. That's been a legislative push from President Trump during the first term and during the second term. And, you know, there's a lot of reform that these universities need to have in order to have a good value for students, a good value for taxpayers. All this compact is asking is, will you talk to us? Will you have that conversation with us? Not about small changes, but about changes for the future.
Great to see you. May Mailman, thank you so much for being here.